Hello everyone, and welcome to another random bits and pieces segment from my brain. And today, sit a while, for we are playing some more Franchise Hockey Manager 6 as part of the Ottawa Senators. Feels like it's been a very long time since I rolled this game to play, so I made a lot of videos in a row, and then I ended up playing other games for a while. As you know, the games that I play are chosen kind of randomly, so it's been a while since that one popped up, but here we are, and today we are going to finish the regular season in the 2006-2007 season, and then we are going to be heading into the playoffs. And then we'll see if we're still going to win the cup. I'm a little scared of the Pittsburgh Penguins. We did pretty good against them this year, but they're pretty good, so they could totally take us out. We're still without Marianosa for 1 to 2 weeks. Looks like he's probably going to be ready for the start of the playoffs, if not, very shortly after. And of course, as an Ottawa Senator fan, even though he is never ever going to hear this, I want to congratulate Marianosa for being inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame. That happened, I think it's yesterday. So of course I would have wished that he would have always been in an Ottawa uniform, but that didn't happen. Still, congratulations to Marianosa, and for all of the other inductees too. But Marianosa, it's a little bit closer to home, so good job. Alrighty, so we're gonna go ahead and get started here. Of course, it's the end of the season, so there's no trades or nothing like that to look at. So we're just gonna go ahead and play through those games and see what happens here. Looks like the Devils is a likely opponent in the first round, so we'll see if that changes or if it stays like that. Passes on point for Petteri Nummelin in Chicago. He had 4 assists against the Edmonton Oilers. Pretty good game. Suspension for Carolina's Chris Pronger. Suspended. He's going to miss 7 games. Ryan Kessler is back from suspension in Florida. Eugene Melnyk is still very happy with me, with my 12-1-1 record in March. David Cullen is available on waivers. He's gonna stay there, at least as far as I'm concerned. Maybe somebody else is gonna pick him up. Who knows? Alright, we are about to play the New Jersey Devils. So the Devils did beat us once this year. It was in New Jersey, and that's where we're playing this game. So we're 2-1. Devils are pretty good. They are 42, 32, and 5. That's good for 8 in the East. So we could hurt them by winning this game. We could hurt their chances of being in the playoffs. I always love playing spoilers. I will always remember, I think it was 5 years ago, the Sens were out of contention for the playoffs, and the Bruins needed to win their last game of the season against us to make the playoffs, and Tuukka Rask got sick, I think, or something like that, and the backup, I think it was Khudobin back then? I could be wrong. I think that's who it was. Anyway, we won like 6-0 or something like that, and Boston didn't get into the playoffs, so it was pretty nice. I love playing spoilers like that. So let's see if we can play spoilers for the Devils. Of course, we are going to be going to the playoffs. It's not that certain for them. Alright, we are going to Brian Elliott. He is going to face Martin Brodeur. Go Sens, go! And we won 4-0. So we outshot the Devils 32-23 in that game. Sheldon Souray was the first star. He had a goal and an assist. Brooks Laich was the second star with an assist. And Mike Fisher was the third star with a goal. So nobody scored in the first period. Then in the second period, Martin Havlat opened up the scoring with an assist from Alexei Yashin. It was 1-0. Then Sheldon Souray scored his 15th, short-handed from Daniel Alfredson. It was 2-0 at that point. And then Mike Fisher scored from Brooks Like and Sheldon Souray. It was 3-0. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention too is Jason Spezza is 3 points away from a 100-point season, so didn't get a point there. There's 1 month more goal to look at. And it was Patrick Elias on the power play from Zidon, so Spezza did not get a point. So for him to get 100 points, he's going to need to score 3 points in 2 games against Pittsburgh and Boston. Chris Draper in Phoenix is suspended. He's going to miss 5 games. Yevgeny Malkin extends his goal streak to 5 games with a goal against Buffalo. No missed time for Carolina's Danny Richmond, not suspended. And it appears that Anton Volchenkov got hurt. With a bruised hand. Alright, so Derek Morris, Timo Elbling, and Christian Backman are all available on waivers. Big game for Milan Mikalik, who had a hat-trick against the Ducks. Memorable game for Alex Ovechkin, who had 3 goals and 2 assists against Atlanta. And red light stays on for Sami Kapanen in that same game. He had a hat-trick. Alright, so we are about to play the Pittsburgh Penguins, who are in town today. We are 2-0-1 against Pittsburgh, so we did pretty good overall against Pittsburgh. I think there's a good chance we're going to face them in the playoffs eventually. Not in the first round. It's not possible for us to face them in the first round. But down the road, we might. So Pittsburgh is going to go with Marc-Andre Fleury in net. We are going to Brian Elliott. And we won 6-3. We outshot the Pens 43-33. Brian McCabe was the first star. He had a goal and an assist. Pavel Datsyuk was the second star with 2 assists. And Joe Thornton was the third star with a goal and an assist. We had 16,089 people in attendance for that game. That was the last regular season game at home. Alright, so nobody scored in the first period, and then in the second period, Joe Thornton scored from Pavel Datsyuk and Jason Spezza. Then Pittsburgh scored to tie the game. Then Mark Streit scored on the power play from Alexei Yashin. Then Brian McCabe from Pavel Datsyuk and Joe Thornton. 3-1 Sens after 2. Then in the third period, Pittsburgh scored, then Patrick Elias scored from Brian McCabe and Sheldon Souray, and then Pittsburgh scored again to come to within 1. But 25 seconds later, Martin Havlat scored on the power play from Jason Spezza and Alexei Yashin, and Daniel Alfredson completed the score from Chris Kelly and Mike Fisher. 6-3 was the final score. Spezza got 2 assists, so he's at 99 points, so he needs 1 point against Boston to get to 100. Alfredson hurt, listed as day-to-day. He can play through that. Dehydration. You don't need to be hydrated to play hockey. Oh, Dion Phaneuf extends his assist streak to 8 games. He had a goal and an assist against San Jose. Maple Leafs players unhappy with ice quality. According to local beat reporters' unnamed source, multiple Toronto players have approached management to voice concerns about the condition of the Northeast Division team's ice. The players met together in a private meeting before the team's practice and appointed an unnamed player to meet with owner Larry Tenenbaum and head coach Pat Burns to air complaints about the ice surface's upkeep. Apparently, the meeting's result was not satisfactory to the players, and it is questionable if it will hurt the 4th place team's morale. Woo! Unrest in Toronto. I know a lot of Sens fans who are not going to be too upset about that. Alright. Oh, yeah. Oh, wait. I checked Alfredson. He's fine. He's just thirsty. Just drink a water or something. Alright. Jason Bakashioa and Mark Mowers are available on... Wow. Mark Mowers is paid a lot of money. Jerome McGinley has a memorable game. He had 3 goals and 2 assists against the Ducks. Danny Heatley has a strong game in that same game. He had 3 goals and 2 assists as well. Lightning's Bryce Salvador is suspended. He's going to miss 7 games. Wow, Bryce Salvador is already 31. Feels like it's the first time we've seen his name ever. Volchenkov might be back soon. Just in time for the playoffs. I like that. Alright, and we are about to play against Boston. So Boston is 45, 30, and 6. That's good for 5th in the East. So pretty good season for Boston. We are 6-0-1 against them this year. Let's see if we can beat them again. It is in Boston. We're going to have Brian Elliott in net. They're going to go to Tomas Vokoun. And we won 6-0. So that's 6 goals for Spezza to get his 100th point of the season. Alright, so we outshot Boston 48-24. Zidon Oshara was the first star. He had 3 assists. Brooks Lake was the second star with 2 goals and an assist. And Patrick Eaves was the third star with 2 assists. So we open up the scoring in the first period with Joe Thornton scoring from Zidon Oshara and Patrick Eaves. Then Brooks Lake from Zidon Oshara and Patrick Eaves again. Then Martin Havlat from Zidon Oshara and Sheldon Souray. It was 3-0 Sens after 1. Then in the second period, Alexander Radulov scored his first NHL goal from Patrick Elliott and Brooks Lake, made it 4-0. And there's only 2 goals left to check to see if Jason Spezza gets 100 points this season. And he did! Alright, so Jason Spezza scored in the third period on the power play from Brian McCabe and Mike Fisher, made it 5-0. And then Brooks Lake from Mike Fisher and Patrick Eliash, 6-0 is the final score. That's pretty cool. Right on the dot. Jason Arnott has played in 1,000 games in his career. That's pretty impressive. No points for Jason Arnott in that game. That happened against Calgary. 32 years old, a star and a half. So Dion Phaneuf's streak ended at 8 games. Did not get a point in that same game. And Jaromir Jagr has accomplished 1,800 points in his career by getting an assist against the New York Rangers. Oh, Brian Elliott is hurt. Might force Alain Vigneault to play Ryan Miller. Alright, no miss time for Dallas Ryan Johnson. No suspension for him. Steve Carrier is suspended in Buffalo. He's gonna miss 3 games. Alright. Alfredson and Volchenkov are about to come back. Alright, so we have all of the nominees, so that always takes a little bit. So the Art Trophy is going to be between Henrik Zetterberg, Jason Spezza, and Jay Boomister. Zetterberg had 72 points, Spezza right on the dot 100. Boomister 56. The Vezina Trophy nominees are Brian Elliott, whom I've been complaining a lot about him playing at the start of the season, Devon Dubnyk, and Manny Fernandez. Now, even if Brian Elliott is a nominee for the Vezina, I'm still not happy that it's not Ryan Miller that's playing. He's the best of the two. I pay him the big bucks. He should be playing. The Norris is going to be between Brian McCabe, Yaroslav Modry, and Shea Weber. So Brian McCabe had a pretty interesting season. 44 points, that's not bad, but that's not great. Plus 48, and a whole bunch of penalty minutes. Modry, that's interesting. 55 points in 69 games, that's pretty good. And plus 36, I think. Then Shea Weber, 45 points in 67 games, and a plus 41. Alright. The Calder is going to be between Brian Elliott, Carey Price, and Paul Stastny. Wow, 2 goaltenders out of 3 nominees. So Brian Elliott, 54 wins, 917. Oh, yeah. Paul Stastny had 63 points in 69 games, so maybe Stastny is going to win it. If not, it should be Brian Elliott. I don't think Carey Price should win it. GM of the year. As usual, I'm not there. Why not? I only won the Cup 5 years in a row. What have I accomplished? So Dave Taylor in Columbus, David Poyle in Washington, and Mark Craig in Anaheim are all the nominees. The Selkie is going to be between Chris Kelly, Derek McKenzie, and John Madden. Lady Beam between Andy McDonald, Jay Boomister, and Sergei Mozyakin. Mark Messier Leadership Award, Chris Pronger, Jeremy Roenick, and Theo Fleury. Ted Lindsay between Henrik Zetterberg, Jason Spezza, and Jay Boomister. Jack Adams between Doug Wilson, Mike O'Connell, and Mike Sullivan. Alright, so Volchenkov and Alfredson are both back, so that's very, very, very good. And we are facing the Leafs in the first round of the playoffs. The Leafs who are unhappy with their eyes. Alright, so Osa and Elliott are... I don't know if I can go... I don't think I can. I guess we'll say, oh, there's still a few days. I might be okay. Alright, Marian Osa sooner, back sooner rather than later. I sure hope so. He missed most of the playoffs last year. Brian Elliott might be okay. Yep, I don't need to put him on injured reserve. That's good. Alright, so we are going to start our playoff run. So we are facing the Toronto Maple Leafs. Let's take a look at the other matchups before we get started here. So in the West, we have Minnesota against Nashville. Wow, 2 pretty recent teams are going to face each other here in the first round. And then San Jose and Anaheim, also 2 fairly recent teams. Then Colorado against Edmonton, and then Detroit against Columbus. Alright, so lots of kind of new teams in there. That's kind of fun. In the East, it's Toronto against us, New Jersey against Pittsburgh, Philadelphia against Washington, and Boston against Montreal. Pretty good matchup in the first round there, Montreal and Boston. They don't like each other much. So as we know, Toronto gave us some problems in the regular season. We went 5-3 against them, with those losses happening mostly at the start of the season when Brian Elliott was not quite established as being good enough to play in the NHL, but was still played every night. And now we're gonna go ahead and take a look at the Leafs lineup. No injuries, so that's the best lineup they can ice. So it's Giguère and Conklin in net, Adrian Aucoin, Gonchar, Cronwall, Kula, Gotch, Pilash, and Ian White on D. That's a respectable D. Agman Boys, Quinton Lang, Ponikarovsky, Steen, Fedoruk, Hall, Zajac, Yell, Moore, Antropov, Jelena, Moss, and Cole. So they don't have too bad of a team, but ours is better. That's just how it is. So they're going to Ty Conklin. We're going to play an injured Brian Elliott. That's interesting. We still prefer to go to Brian Elliott despite the injury instead of going to Ryan Miller. And we won the first game 6-0, so pretty good. And we outshot Toronto 66-13. Alexei Yashin was the first star. He had 2 goals and 2 assists. Pavel Datsyuk was the second star with a goal and 3 assists, and Alexander Radulov was the third star with a goal and an assist. 19,667 people in attendance for that game. So Radulov scored the first goal of the playoffs for us this year in the first period from Yashin and Martin Havlat, and then Pavel Datsyuk from Shara and Yashin. It was 2-0 after 1. Then Yashin from Radulov and Datsyuk, then Sheldon Souray from Pavel Datsyuk and Joe Thornton, and it was 4-0 after 2. And finally, in the third period, we scored 2 more goals. Chris Kelly from Mike Fisher and Daniel Alfredson, and Alexei Yashin on the power play from Pavel Datsyuk and Jason Spezza. 6-0 the final score. It was a one-way affair. The Leafs were never in it. Oh, Jaromir Jagr is day-to-day with an injury. That's not good for them. They don't need that in the playoffs. There was no stopping Manny Malhotra playing for Colorado. He had a hat-trick against Edmonton. Alright, so Colorado won the first game, San Jose won, Columbus won, Minnesota won, Montreal won, we won, Philadelphia won, and Pittsburgh won. Alright, Marian Hossa almost 100%. And Brian Elliott about to come back as well. Alright, so we are hosting the Toronto Maple Leafs again. So let's play. Ty Conklin in net for Toronto. We are going to Brian Elliott again. Ooh, we actually lost that game 2-1 in overtime. So the Leafs can say thank you to Ty Conklin for that one. We outshot Toronto 49-19 in that game. Brad Boyes was the first star of the game. He had a goal. Chris Kelly was the second star with a goal. And Ty Conklin was the third star with 48 saves. 18,912 people in attendance for that game. So Toronto scored in the first period, took a 1-0 lead. Then Chris Kelly scored from Daniel Alfredson and Mike Fisher, tied it at 1. And that would remain tied at 1 all the way into overtime, where nobody scored in the first overtime. And in the second overtime, Sergei Gonchar played the hero in the second overtime. 2-1 Leafs was the final score. The series is tied at 1 and moving on into Toronto. Milan Mikalik is not suspended in San Jose. Radim Verbata has a great game in Colorado. He had a hat-trick. So the Oilers have allowed 2 hat-tricks in 2 games. That's not good for them. Alright, Brian Elliott is not hurt anymore. That's good for him. Alright, so Colorado won again. Anaheim won. Columbus won again. Nashville won. Boston won. We won. Toronto won. Sorry, I'm so used to winning in the playoffs. It was more the habit than anything. Philadelphia won and Pittsburgh won. Alright. Alright. Marian Hossa is back. Thank God. Jaromir Jagr sustained a back tightness and training mishap. Alright, so he might be missing some games. Not good in Pittsburgh. Can't have a star player like that get hurt. Right, who am I sending down? I think I'm gonna send Brendan Baczynski down. There you go. You go down. And Marianosa comes back up. Alright, now we are going to play in Toronto. So Marianosa slides on the second line with Patrick Elliott and Brooks Lake. Alright, so Brian Elliott in net for us, Ty Conklin in net for the Leafs. And we won 3-0. We outshot Toronto 47-34. Brian Elliott was the first star of the game. He had a shutout with 34 saves. Pavel Datsyuk was the second star with 2 goals and an assist. And Joe Thornton was the third star with a goal and an assist as well. Pavel Datsyuk opened up the scoring in the first period on the power play from Mark Streit and Zidon. It was 1-0 at that point. Then in the second period, we had Joe Thornton score from Jason Spezza and Pavel Datsyuk, and then Pavel Datsyuk from Joe Thornton and Anton Volchenkov, and 3-0 was the final score because nobody scored in the third period. Good night for Eric Weinrich, 40 years old. He had a goal and 4 assists against the Washington Capitals. Wow, that might be like the game of his career right before potentially retiring at the end of this season. Alright, so Colorado won, Anaheim won. Oh, Columbus took a 3-0 lead in their series against Detroit. So if we make it to the Stanley Cup Finals, there's a good chance that we are not going to face the Red Wings. Finally. Minnesota won, Montreal won, we won, Philadelphia won, and Pittsburgh won. Right, and we are about to play the Leafs again. Let's make it 3-1 in our series. Brian Elliott in net for us, Ty Conklin in net for them, so... We won 10-0 in a playoff game. That's... that must hurt for Toronto. Oh, dear God. Look at those shots on goal. What happened there? I think I broke the game. We outshot Toronto 84-12. That's like... that's more than 6 times the amount of shots that Toronto got. That's crazy. Wow. In a playoff game, too. So we have Zidon as the first star with 2 goals and an assist. Jason Spezza is the second star with 2 goals and an assist as well. And Mark Streit is the third star with 2 assists. So there's going to be a lot of goals to say, so please bear with me. Brooks Lake opened up the scoring in the first period on the power play from Joe Thornton and Marianosa. That Matt Unwick that I got in a trade scored from Mike Fisher and Chris Kelly. Then Pavel Datsyuk from Jason Spezza and Joe Thornton. Jason Spezza from Sheldon, Souray and Pavel Datsyuk. Daniel Alfredson from Martin Avlat and Zidon. And then Zidon from Brooks Lake. And after 1 period, it was super quiet in Toronto because we were up 6-0. There weren't a lot of cheering going on, I'm pretty sure. Then in the second period, Jason Spezza scored from Brian McCabe, then Zidon from Martin Avlat and Mark Streit. It was 8-0 after 2. Then in the third period, Alexei Yashin from Mark Streit and Mike Fisher and Patrick Eves completed the scoring. Just in case that, in those 3 minutes and 13 seconds that were left, just in case Toronto would have tried to come back, we scored our 10th goal. Good game for Joe Pavelski. He had 4 assists against Anaheim. Ramsey Abid in Colorado is suspended. He's going to miss a game. Alright, let's see. Edmonton won, San Jose won, Columbus swept Detroit in the first round, Nashville won, Boston won, we won, Philadelphia won, and Pittsburgh swept New Jersey, I believe. Wow. Oh, Sheldon, sorry, is hurt. How long is he hurt for? Day-to-day medial epicondylitis. Pretty sure I didn't pronounce that right. Please don't hold it against me. It's a pretty complicated word, probably worth a lot of points in Scrabble. Right, they are still going to Ty Conklin, even though he allowed 1 million goals in the last game. We are going to Brian Elliott, and we may be able to end the first round on home ice. And we did, with a 7-2 win. We outshot Toronto only 46-14. We decided to take it a little more relaxed for this game. Mark Streit was the first star. He had 2 goals and 2 assists. Zidon was the second star despite not getting any points. And Marianosa was the third star with a goal and an assist. So Joe Thornton opened up the scoring in the first from Brian McCabe and Pavel Datsyuk, and it was 1-0 Sens after 1. And I forgot to mention, because we are back in Ottawa, that the attendance was 17,016 people for that game. Then in the second period, Toronto scored to tie it at 1, then Mark Streit scored from Chris Kelly to make it 2-1, then Toronto tied the game, and it was tied at 2 after 2. But then Toronto couldn't contain us anymore, so we scored 5 goals in the third period. Marianosa scored from Mark Streit, Anton Volchenkov from Brian McCabe and Jason Spezza, Daniel Alfredson from Alexei Yashin, Mark Streit from Martin Avlat and Alexei Yashin, and finally Patrick Eliash from Marianosa and Mark Streit. 7-2 the final score, and the Toronto Maple Leafs say 4 because they are playing golf. Ramsey Abid served his suspension. He is back. Alright, so San Jose won, Edmonton won, Nashville won, we won, and Montreal won. Sheldon Souray should be back soon. That is good news. Sean Orkoff is out. He was hurt, and he's out for 4 months with a torn back muscle. No further action needed for Edmonton's Semyonov. Not suspended. Alright, so Colorado won, Anaheim won, Boston lost, and Nashville won 9-4. Alright. Right, and Anaheim is moving on to the second round. They got rid of San Jose. So it looks like our second round opponent is going to be the Philadelphia Flyers. We have seen them in the playoffs before, so that's not an unfamiliar opponent. Alright, and we went 3-1 against Philadelphia this season, so they did beat us once. If I remember correctly, they have no goaltending, the defense is okay, and they have pretty good offense. That's how I remember it. Alright, so Richie Regier and Tom Pricing are not playing. Well, Tom Pricing might, but Richie Regier is definitely not playing. So no goaltending, or no great goaltending. Brent Johnson and Jeremy Duchesne in it, so that's not great. It's better on D. Curtis Foster, Yaroslav Modry, Marcus Ragnarsson, Nate Gannon, Eric Weinrich, and Mike Komisarek, so it's okay, it's not great, but up front they're pretty good. So Mike Richards, Justin Williams, Simon Gagné, Johnson, Martin St. Louis, Rod Brennamore, Jeff Carter, Claude Giroux, Darcy Tucker, Paul Gastad, Curtis Fraser, Daniel Zubrus, Pavel, I think, Peter Ubasek, Mark Rickey, and Matt Cook. So that's a pretty stacked forward team. So they might be able to outgun us. So they're going to go to Brent Johnson in net. We are going to Brian Elliott. And we won 4-1 for the first game in Ottawa. We outshot Philadelphia 53-22. Mark Streit was the first star of the game. He had a goal and an assist. Brooks Lake was the second star with a goal and an assist. And Brian McCabe, third star with an assist. 20,296 people in attendance for that game. So Pavel Datsyuk opened up the scoring in the first. It was his fifth, scored on the power play from Mark Streit and Alexei Yashin. Then Marianosa from Brooks Lake, and Brooks Lake scored short-handed from Joe Thornton. It was 3-0 Sens after one. Then nobody scored in the second period. And then in the third, Philadelphia scored, made it 3-1, but with 2 seconds left to go in the game, Mark Streit scored in an empty net from Brian McCabe and Jason Spezza. And 4-1 was the final score. And in the other series, Anaheim beat Columbus, Nashville beat Colorado, we won, and Pittsburgh beat Montreal. Which, by the way, if the NHL returns to action and that there's those expanded playoff format, Montreal's going to be facing Pittsburgh, so hopefully that's kind of an omen of what's going to happen there. Maybe Pittsburgh's going to really win 2-0 at the start and make me happy. So I think that Sheldon Souray is about to come back. Alright, so game 2 against the Flyers. Brent Johnson for the Flyers, Brian Elliott for the Sens. We won 2-1. Pretty good game. Pretty tight game. We outshot Philadelphia 32-17. Anton Volchenkov was the first star. He had an assist. Rod Brennamore was the second star with a goal, and Mike Fisher was the third star with a goal as well. 19,180 people in attendance for that game. Alexei Yashin opened up the scoring in the first from Anton Volchenkov and Brian McCabe. It was 1-0 Sens after one. Then in the second period, Philadelphia tied the game. It was tied at 1 going into the third, but 28 seconds into the third period, Mike Fisher scored his first of the playoffs. Unassisted, it was 2-1, and that score would hold. So pretty tight game against Philly here. Alright. Oh, I forgot to look at the scores for the other games. I am a terrible person. I'm sorry. I did not do that on purpose. Sheldon Souray returns. Although he never quite left. Okay, so I have to nominate a player for the Hall of Fame. So we have Grant Fuhr, Glenn Wesley, Brad McCrimmon, Jeff Courtnall, Ed Olchuk, Doug Crossman, Charlie Huddy, Doug Bodger, Ulfston Wilson, and Craig Janney. Glenn Wesley. I think I'll go with Grant Fuhr. Make Jamie McLennan happy. Alright, so our series moves on to the Philadelphia Flyers, where we're going to play against the Flyers, of course. In Philadelphia, of course. And we're playing Brian Elliott, of course. And he is going to face Brent Johnson. I'm not going to say of course, because who knows. And we won 4-2. So we outshot Philadelphia 40-19, and that one, Mark Streit was the first star of the game. He had 2 goals and an assist. Curtis Foster was the second star with an assist, and Zidon O'Shara was the third star with a goal and an assist. So Philadelphia actually took a 2-0 lead into that game, into the first period. It was 2-0 after 1, and we were trailing, and we were scared. Nah, we weren't. So Mark Streit scored for us in the second period from Patrick Elias and Marian Osa, then Zidane O'Shara from Marian Osa and Mark Streit, and it was tied at 2 after 2. Then in the third period, Joe Thornton scored from Jason Spezza and Pavel Datsyuk, and then Mark Streit scored on the power play in an empty net. It was his 5th of the playoffs from Zidon and Alexei Yashin, and 4-2 was the final score in that one. We took a 3-0 lead into that series, which might end in 2 days. Minor injury for Roberto Luongo. Well, it doesn't really matter because the Islanders are not in it, so... Right, so Columbus won, Colorado won, we won, and Pittsburgh won. I think there's a good chance we're going to face Pittsburgh in the Eastern Conference Finals, and that could be hard. Maybe with some luck they're going to lose some players to injury or something. Some good players to injury. We'll see. Right, so we are now playing in Philadelphia again. We have a chance to sweep the Flyers. Brian Elliott and Brent Johnson are still the goaltenders. And we won 4-1, so we swept the Flyers. We outshot them 50-20. Brian McCabe was the first star of the game. He had a goal and an assist. Anton Volchenkov was the second star with a goal. And Marianosa was the third star with 2 assists. So Brian McCabe opened up the scoring in the first from Chris Kelly and Marianosa. Then in the second period, Rod Brennamore tied the game at 1. Then Jason Spezza scored from Brian McCabe and Marianosa. Anton Volchenkov from Chris Kelly and Patrick Elias, and it was 3-1 after 2. Then in the third period, Daniel Alfredson scored from Sheldon, Souray, and Zidon. 4-1 was the final score. Alright, so Jagr has a great game. He had a hat-trick against Montreal. Right, so Columbus won, Nashville won, we won, and Montreal won despite Jagr's hat-trick. I did not catch that. Alright, so Pittsburgh won, Colorado won, and Anaheim won. Yep, and it's all decided. So we are going to be facing Pittsburgh in the Eastern Conference Final. So they won 4-1 against Montreal, Colorado won, Columbus won. So it's going to be Colorado against Columbus in the Western Final and us against Pittsburgh in the Eastern Final. So some new teams. A little bit. That's good. We definitely want that. It gets pretty frustrating to face Montreal and Detroit every season, so it's nice to face a few different teams. Alright, so, but in order to face the Western champion, we're gonna need to beat Pittsburgh, and they're not gonna be easy to beat. They did get 120 points this season. So we were 3-0-1 against Pittsburgh this year. And the only injuries they have is Patrick Sharp. He's hurt right now, so not going to play for now, but he might come back soon. Marc-Andre Fleury and, oh god, Wade DeBilwicks in net. Alex Goligoski, Brett Clark, Curtis Crashtons, Greg Zanon, Chris Letang, Brooks Harpick, Jeff Finger, and Barrett Jackman on D. Sean Bergenheim, Thomas Sorovi, Morozov, Trudel, Crosby, Malkin, Stahl, Hecht, Christensen, Kostopoulos, Sharp, and Malone. And of course Jaromir Jagr, I think I forgot to say his name. Alright, so yeah, it's not gonna be easy, but we can do it. Alright, Marc-Andre Fleury in net for Pittsburgh. We are going with Brian Elliott. Go Sens go. And we won the first game 5-2. We outshot Pittsburgh 41-22. Zidon Oshar was the first star. He had a goal and an assist. Mark Streit was the second star with a goal and an assist. And Pavel Datsyuk was the third star with a goal and an assist as well. 18,357 people in attendance for that game. Pavel Datsyuk opened up the scoring in the second period. Nobody scored in the first. From Joe Thornton and Jason Spezza. Then Pittsburgh tied the game. It was tied at 1. Then Alfie scored in the third from Martin Avlet and Mark Streit. Then Brooks Like from Patrick Eliash, and it was 3-1 at that point. Then Sidney Crosby scored, made it 3-2, but we scored 2 more goals. Zidon Oshara scored on the power play from Pavel Datsyuk, and then Mark Streit from Zidon Oshara and Patrick Eves, and 5-2 is the final score. Pretty good first game. We contained their star players pretty good. I forgot to look at the score in the West. I am terribly sorry. Alright, so we're going to play at home against Pittsburgh again. So Fleury, Elliott, a pumped up crowd. And we won 6-3. We outshot Pittsburgh 28-24, so it was pretty tight. Patrick Eves was the first star. He had 2 goals. Daniel Alfredson was the second star with a goal and an assist. And Alexei Yashin was the third star with a goal and an assist as well. 20,510 people in attendance for that game. Alfredson scored first in the first period. It was his 5th from Zidon Oshara and Mark Streit. Then Alexei Yashin scored his 5th as well, unassisted. Martin Avlat from Alexei Yashin and Daniel Alfredson. It was 3-0. Jagger scored, made it 3-1 after 1. Then Crosby scored in the second period to make it 3-2. The Penguins were within 1. Mark Streit scored early in the third period from Jason Spezza, then Patrick Eves from Jason Spezza and Pavel Datsyuk. Sidney Crosby scored again, make it 5-3, but Patrick Eves scored in an empty net from Sheldon Souray, and 6-3 was the final score. We did not generate that many shots compared to, 84. I forgot to check the Western score again. Wow. I'm terrible at this. I'm terrible. Terrible. Okay, so the series is tied in the West between Colorado and Columbus. It's tied at 1. I need to pay more attention to that. Brian Elliott in net, Marc-Andre Fleury in net, so the series moves to Pittsburgh now, of course. And we lost 4-1, so Pittsburgh back in that series. We outshot Pittsburgh 35-24. Barrett Jackman was the first star of the game. He had an assist. Marc-Andre Fleury was the second star with 34 saves. And Jaromir Jagr was the third star with a goal and an assist. So Pittsburgh took a 2-0 lead into the first. Then Zidon Oshara put us on the board in the second period with his 5th of the playoffs from Patrick Eves and Sheldon Souray. It was 2-1 Pittsburgh at that point. And in the third period, Pittsburgh scored 2 more goals. We lost 4-1. A night to remember for Bill Guerin, who had a hat-trick, 3 goals. Alright, and I did see the score this time. Columbus won 7-0 against Colorado, so we might be facing Bill Guerin if we make it to the finals, and if he does. Face a familiar face. Alright. Playing in Pittsburgh again. We won 2-1 in overtime this time. Another tight game. Ooh, Pittsburgh actually outshot us 35-18 in that game. What happened? Jason Spezza was the first star. He had 2 assists. Sidney Crosby was the second star with a goal, and Matt Unwick was the third star with a goal as well. Matt Unwick opened up the scoring in the first from Jason Spezza and Joe Thornton. Then Crosby scored to tie the game at 1. And then the game would go all the way into overtime. And then in the first overtime period, Alexei Yashin played the hero with a goal on the power play from Mark Streit and Jason Spezza. It was 2-1. And now we are up 3-1 in the series. And Colorado tied their series against Columbus with a 3-1 win. Tied at 2 over there. Alright, back at home to play against Pittsburgh, of course. Fleury in net for Pittsburgh. Elliott in net for us. If we win, we are moving on to the Stanley Cup Finals. And we won 4-2. Alright, so again, Pittsburgh outshot us 29-22. I don't like that. Jason Spezza was the first star. He had a goal and 2 assists. Tuomas Surovi was the second star with a goal. And Pavel Datsyuk was the third star with a goal and an assist. 19,272 people in attendance for that game. Jason Spezza scored in the first period. It was only 9 seconds old from Zidon and Pavel Datsyuk. It was 1-0 after 1. Then Pittsburgh tied the game in the second. It was tied at 1. Then Alexei Yashin scored from Daniel Alfredson and Martin Havlat. 2-1 Sens after 2. And then in the third period, Pittsburgh tied the game, but then we scored twice. Pavel Datsyuk from Joe Thornton and Jason Spezza, and then Joe Thornton from Jason Spezza. 4-2 was the final score. And just like that, we moved on to the Stanley Cup Finals, and Columbus took a 1-5-3, took a 3-2 lead in their series against Colorado. And Columbus won 3-1, so we are facing the Columbus Blue Jackets in the Stanley Cup Finals. Anybody but the Detroit Red Wings at this point. I was getting a little tired of seeing them. Alright, so we are going to be playing Columbus, and that's pretty interesting to me because it's a pretty new team. So they've built pretty well. They made a few pretty gutsy trades. Remember, they traded for Ray Bourque. He's not there anymore, he retired, but they did trade for him, and they made a few other interesting acquisitions. And of course they have Rick Nash, so, you know, that's not bad. Alright, so we did play once against Columbus this season, and we lost. So hopefully it's not an indication of how things are going to go in the Stanley Cup Final here. Right, so they do have a couple injuries. So Brad Larson and Eric Bogunicki are both hurt. They're not going to be playing. Right, so in net it's Manny Fernandez and Manny Legacy. Brett Etiken, Mark Matot, Chris Russell, Oleg Tverdovsky, Stefan Robida, Mike Matteau, Andy Sutton, and Steve Montador on D. That's a pretty decent D. Pretty good mix of puck movers and tougher guys too. Rick Nash, is it Jeff Platt? Yes, Jeff Platt, Lindstrom, Nikolai Zerdev, Derek Brassard, Dopita, Bill Guerin, Paul Stachny, Mike Selinger. Oh wow, they have two of our previous players, and they both wear A as well. Mark Savard, Fritsch, Moziakin, and Aaron Asham. We should be able to beat them, but they do have a pretty interesting team. So we start in Ottawa. Manny Fernandez is going to be in net for Columbus. We are going with Brian Elliott. And we won 3-2. We outshot Columbus 30-28. Joe Thornton was the first star with 2 assists. Bill Guerin was the second star with a goal and an assist. And Daniel Alfredson was the third star with an assist. 20,299 people in attendance for that Stanley Cup Final game in Ottawa. Brian McCabe was opened up the scoring in the first period from Alexei Yashin and Daniel Alfredson. It was 1-0 Sens after 1. Then in the second period, Columbus tied the game, but then Marianosa scored from Patrick Elias and Joe Thornton. Then Anton Volchenkov from Joe Thornton, and it was 3-1 Sens after 2. Sergei Mozyakin scored on the power play late in the third period to put his team to within 1, but it was too little too late. We won 3-2. Pretty tight game. So maybe that's how they win. Maybe they're always in games, hanging around, never really getting out chance and just waiting for you to make a mistake. All right, so Manny, Fernandez still, Brian Elliott still, and we won 5-0. We outshot Columbus 47-19 in that one. Joe Thornton was the first star. He had 2 assists. Anton Volchenkov was the second star with a goal and an assist. And Jason Spezza was the third star with a goal and an assist as well. 20,197 people in attendance for that particular game. So we scored 4 goals in the first period. Jason Spezza scored his 5th from Joe Thornton and Pavel Datsyuk. Volchenkov from Mark Streit and Jason Spezza. Brooks-like from Joe Thornton, and then Patrick Eves from Mike Fisher. 4-0 after 1. Then all the way into the third period, Alexei Yashin scored from Anton Volchenkov and Martin Havlat. And 5-0 is the final score. Alright, and now the series moves to Columbus, where we are obviously going to play the Blue Jackets. Let's see if we can beat them on the road as well. Brian Elliott, Manny, Fernandez. And we won 4-0, so we are about to sweep Columbus in the Stanley Cup Finals. We outshot Columbus 33-19 in that one. Pavel Datsyuk was the first star. He had a goal and an assist. Alexei Yashin was the second star with a goal and an assist. And Marianosa was the third star with a goal. We took a 3-0 lead into the first. Alexei Yashin from Chris Kelly and Patrick Eves. Then Marianosa from Pavel Datsyuk and Matt Unwick. Jason Spezza scored on the power play from Alexei Yashin, and it was 3-0 after 1. Then in the second period, Pavel Datsyuk scored short-handed from Sheldon, Souray, and Zidon. 4-0 was the final score because nobody else scored. So we are up 3-0 in that series. Columbus will have to play desperate in that last game, or else we are going to win a 6th Stanley Cup in a row. Are we going to be able to do it? Let's figure it out. It may happen now. Brian Elliott, Manny Fernandez. I'm clicking the sim button. Go Sens go. And we won 3-0, swept the Columbus Blue Jackets in the Stanley Cup Finals. We outshot Columbus 50-18. Zidon was the first star with 2 assists. Jason Spezza was the second star with 2 goals. And Mark Streit was the third star with an assist. Jason Spezza scored from Pavel Datsyuk and Joe Thornton. Patrick Eves scored his 5th from Zidon and Chris Kelly. It was 2-0 Sens after 1. Then all the way into the third period, Jason Spezza really hurt Columbus, scoring at 8:03 from Zidon and Mark Streit. Columbus could never score in that game. And we are the champions again. We are the champions, my friend. Alright, that's enough singing. I am not a very good singer. Alright, so we won the cup again, so that's a 6th Stanley Cup in a row. The salary cap has been temporarily expanded by 10%, but it's okay. Jason Spezza won the art. I think it's pretty well deserved. Streit, Mark Streit, wow, he got the Connie Smite. It's pretty rare that a defenseman wins it. Yeah, he had 19 points in 18 games. Wow, pretty good playoff performer. Last year he had 17 points in 17 games. And he finished at plus 23. So yeah, I think Mark Streit was a pretty good pickup, if I dare say so myself. Alright, so Mark Streit won the Connie Smythe. Brian Elliott won the Vezina. The Norris goes to Shea Weber. Oh my god, he never won the Norris. What's that? I did say I broke the game earlier with all those shots on goal. I guess it broke the code and gave Shea Weber a Norris. Oh my god. Alright, so Elliott also wins the Calder. Mark Craig in Anaheim is the GM of the year. Madden wins the Selkie. Ovechkin wins the Maurice Richard. He scored 55. Jagger won the Art Ross. So the best scorer this year in the NHL was Jagger with 122 points in 70 games. He did miss some time. Sheldon Souray wins the Plus Minus Award. Manny Fernandez wins the Roger Crozier's Saving Grace Award winner. The Jennings was won by Brian Elliott. Lady Bing was won by Sergei Mozyakin. Chris Chelios wins the Bill Masterton. Mark Messier Leadership Award goes to Chris Pronger. Ted Lindsay Award goes to Spezza. Mike Sullivan was the Jack Adams winner trophy. And oh boy, so the All-Star teams were named, and we have 4 of the 6 spots on the first team. So Brian Elliott, Brian McCabe, Pavel Datsyuk, and Jason Spezza. Alright, well that's it. So we are the victors of the Stanley Cup again. Again, I keep saying things are going to get a little bit more challenging. That's true. I'm going to need to get rid of a few players now. I've been a little bit liberal with my salary, with the salary cap and everything. And I'm going to need to make some room, so I'm going to tinker with my lineup. I already kind of explained what my plan is. I don't know who I am going to end up with, but do expect to see a little bit of a different team when we come back next time. But for now, I do want to thank you for tuning in as usual. And if you've liked the video, feel free to like, subscribe, share, comment, all of that good stuff. And until I roll this game again, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you.